The hallway of Jefferson Middle School at 6:47 in the evening looked like a different world than it did at 8 in the morning. Gone was the noise, the lockers slamming, the sneakers squeaking on linoleum, the 100 small dramas of 212-year-olds trying to figure out who they were. At 6:47, the hallway was just long and quiet and lit by half the lights the district had decided to leave on after hours to save money. The kind of quiet that made every footstep sound deliberate. Marcus Webb was the only student left in the building. He was 13 years old, long-limbed in the way of boys who have grown faster than they've had time to get used to, with his backpack still on one shoulder and his sneakers that had a small hole starting at the left toe that he'd been covering with a black marker for 3 weeks so nobody would notice. He was supposed to have left an hour ago. His mother's shift at the hospital ended at 7, and she would drive past the school on her way home. And if he wasn't standing out front, she would worry in the particular exhausted way she worried. Not dramatic, just quiet and tight. The worry of a woman who was already carrying too much to afford any more surprises. But he hadn't left because of Mr. Earl. Earl Simmons was the nighttime janitor at Jefferson Middle School, and he had worked there for 11 years. And in those 11 years, approximately 4 students had ever learned his name. Most of them called him the janitor, or didn't call him anything at all because they had already learned, at 12 and 13, the particular social habit of looking past people whose jobs involved cleaning up after them. Marcus had learned his name in September, the first week of school, because Marcus had knocked over an entire bottle of blue paint in the art room and had stayed to help clean it up instead of walking away, and the man who had come to help him had introduced himself with a handshake. A real one, firm and direct, the kind of handshake that meant something. Earl Simmons, the man had said. People just call me Mr. Earl. He was 61 years old, built like someone who had worked physically his entire life, with a white mustache and reading glasses he kept on a cord around his neck and a slow way of moving that was not laziness but economy, the movement of a man who had learned to save his energy because the night was always longer than it looked. Tonight, Marcus had stayed because of what he had seen at 4:30. He'd been at his locker, last one out after staying for math help, when he'd passed the gymnasium hallway and seen Mr. Earl sitting on the floor with his back against the wall and his mop beside him and his eyes closed, not sleeping, just stopped, the way a machine stops when it's been running too long. His hand was pressed against his lower back, and even from down the hallway, Marcus could see the tight line of his jaw that meant pain. Marcus had stood there for a moment. The smart thing, the easy thing, the thing that every other person who might have walked past would have done, was to keep moving. It wasn't his business. He had homework. His mother was coming at 7, but he'd walked over instead. Mr. Earl. The man had opened his eyes without embarrassment, which Marcus had respected immediately. Marcus. He'd said it like he wasn't surprised. You're back? Flares up. He'd said it simply, without asking for anything. The pride of a man who had never been in the habit of asking. I got time, Marcus had said and picked up the mop. That had been 2 hours ago. Since then, Marcus had mopped the East Wing hallway, emptied 14 trash cans, wiped down the cafeteria tables. A job that was worse than it sounded. Always, because middle schoolers were catastrophic, and was now finishing the gymnasium floor in long even strokes while Mr. Earl sat in the bleachers with an ice pack from the nurse's office pressed against his lower back and directed him with the occasional quiet instruction. You're going too fast on the corners, Mr. Earl said, not unkindly. Slow down on the corners, otherwise you just push the dirt around. Marcus slowed down on the corners. They didn't talk much. That was something Marcus had noticed about Mr. Earl from the beginning. He didn't fill silence with noise. He let quiet be quiet, which was a quality Marcus had come to appreciate because his life had very little of it. Small apartment, thin walls. His little sister Destiny's cartoons always on in the next room. His mother's phone calls with the billing department. Always patient, always polite. Always somehow dignified even when she was being told no. When the gym floor was done, Marcus wrung out the mop and leaned it against the wall and looked at his work. It was clean. The overhead lights made it shine. Good, Mr. Earl said from the bleachers. Just that. Good. But he said it the way that meant something more. Marcus picked up his backpack. from the bleacher row and sat down, 2 rows below the old man, and pulled out his phone to text his mother that he was on his way. He was 30 minutes late. She had already sent 2 messages. He typed back quickly and then just sat there for a moment, because he was tired in a satisfying way, the way you get tired when you've actually done something. "Why'd you stay?" Mr. Earl asked. Marcus thought about it honestly instead of just answering, "Because you were hurting and the work wasn't done." Mr. Earl looked at him for a long moment with the reading glasses now up on his nose, even though he wasn't reading anything. "How old are you?" 13. The old man made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, but wasn't not one either. 13, he repeated like the number meant something specific to him. Then he said, "You got people at home who raised you right." "My mom," Marcus said. "Just her." Mr. Earl nodded. He understood that sentence entirely. "She work hard?" "Every day." The old man was quiet for a moment. "It shows," he said. And then he stood up carefully, the ice pack in one hand, and he put his other hand briefly on Marcus's shoulder, not in a dramatic way, just in the way that men who have lived long enough to know what matters sometimes do. And he said, "Go home, son. Your mama's waiting." Marcus went home. He didn't think much about it after that. He hadn't stayed to be noticed. He'd stayed because it was the right thing, and because Mr. Earl's jaw had been tight with pain, and because the work wasn't finished, and those 3 reasons together had been enough. He did his homework that night and ate dinner and helped Destiny with her spelling words and went to bed, and that was that. The week moved the way school weeks move, too slow during the days and somehow too fast by Friday. Marcus had a math test on Wednesday that he thought he did okay on. He had a disagreement with his friend, Troy, on Thursday that was resolved by Friday morning, the way most of their disagreements were, without either of them formally acknowledging it. He saw Mr. Earl twice in the hallways, and they exchanged nods, the nod of 2 people who have an understanding. He had completely forgotten about the whole thing by the following Wednesday morning when the front office called him out of second period. Marcus walked into the principal's office with the particular low-grade anxiety that every student feels when they're called to the principal. The rapid internal review of everything you've done recently that could have gotten you in trouble. He couldn't think of anything, but that had never been completely comforting. Principal Dawson was standing behind her desk with an expression he couldn't read. Beside her was a man Marcus had never seen before. The man was maybe 40, Caucasian, in a dark suit that fit the way expensive suits fit, with the kind of calm self-possession that doesn't come from arrogance but from having spent years building something real. He had his hands clasped in front of him, and he was looking at Marcus with an expression of particular and genuine attention. "Marcus," Principal Dawson said, "this is Mr. David Simmons." The last name landed a half-second after Marcus processed the face, and then both things arrived together. "Simmons." "Mr. Earl's son," the man said, stepping forward with his hand extended. He shook Marcus's hand the way his father shook hands, firm, real, direct. "He told me about you." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he said the honest thing, which was, "Is he okay?" David Simmons smiled, and in the smile was his father's face. "He's okay. Back's been a problem for a few years. He won't admit how bad it is." He paused. "He told me what you did last Wednesday. Stayed 2 hours. Did most of his shift." "It wasn't, I just helped," Marcus said. "I know," David said. "That's what he told me. He said you didn't make a thing of it. You just picked up the mop." He looked at Marcus for a moment in a measuring way that was not uncomfortable. "Do you know what I do?" Marcus shook his head. "I run a technology education nonprofit. We operate in 11 cities. We identify students, middle school, your age, sometimes a little older, who show exceptional character. Not just academic performance, but character. And we offer them full scholarships to a private STEM high school, along with mentorship, internships, and a post-secondary scholarship fund that covers 4 years of university." The room was very quiet. "My father has worked in schools for 11 years, David continued. "He calls me sometimes and tells me about students. In 11 years, he has called me twice." He stopped. "Last Thursday night, he called me about you." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a tectonic thing, slow and deep and permanent. "I've reviewed your academic record with Principal Dawson's help," David said. "Your grades are strong. More importantly, your teachers describe you as someone who pays attention to people." Mrs. Garrett, in English, said you once rewrote an entire group project section because you noticed your partner was struggling and hadn't said anything. He said it simply as a fact. You notice people, Marcus. That's not a small thing. That's actually the thing. Marcus thought about his mother, about the way she noticed things too, the way she noticed when Destiny was about to cry before Destiny knew it herself, the way she noticed when Marcus was carrying something without him saying a word, the way she had noticed his left sneaker 3 weeks ago and hadn't said anything, but the next morning there had been a new pair of laces on his desk. I want to offer you a place in our program, David Simmons said. Full scholarship to Whitmore Academy starting next fall. Everything covered. Tuition, books, transportation, materials, a mentor assigned to you personally, and a university fund that will be waiting for you in 4 years regardless of where you choose to go. Principal Dawson had her hand over her mouth. Marcus looked at David Simmons and said the first thing that came to his mind, which was not thank you and was not yes and was not any of the things you might expect. He said, "Does your father know you're doing this?" David looked at him. Then he laughed, a real one, surprised and warm. He suggested it, he said. That evening, Marcus's mother came home from her shift at 7:15 to find her son sitting at the kitchen table with a folder of papers in front of him. She set down her bag and looked at him with the eyes that had always been able to read him before he spoke.